The VW Racing Cup about to burst into action here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit for their first of two races today here in the southeast of England, and a big grid of cars and some fascinating racing in prospect. I've never yet seen a dull VW Racing Cup race, and I don't think we're going to see one today either. Very warm day here today already, the temperature into the low 20s, and we're only at about 25 past 11 local time here. It's only set to get warmer, although it is a little overcast now, with perhaps the slight threat of some rain. But right now, a dry track and some really, really good racing in prospect. A big crowd on hand as well here today at Brands Hatch, the British GT Championship and its support package, continuing to gather really, really good support from the UK's motorsport enthusiasts, and in fact enthusiasts from around the world really. I've heard a lot of European accents here today, lots of people travelling over to Brands Hatch. It's fairly handy in that respect, being in the south of England, fairly easily accessible from mainland Europe, and lots of people making the trip over here to one of the most famous racetracks in the world. Brands Hatch itself is very well known. The Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit though is revered really by almost every racing driver you speak to, even the ones that don't necessarily tend to go too well here. They still enjoy driving around it because it's such a roller coaster ride from the Indy circuit, a tight and technical first sector of the lap, then out onto the high-speed Grand Prix loop. Overtaking though is sometimes at a premium, so the race start is crucial. This run therefore into Paddock Hill Bend in a few minutes time will be of particular significance. It will be Josh Coggan who'll be hoping to get into the first corner first. Well, we'll all be hoping to be the first driver into the first corner, but he has the best shot because he's on pole position, and Josh Coggan is third place in the championship, 16 points away from Owen Walton, who starts fourth on the grid. So there's a good chance here that Coggan might be able to take some points out of the points leader. Martin Depper is back, having missed the previous round. He's second on the grid, and then Rory Clark, who makes a welcome return as well, front runner in last year's championship. Plenty for fans young and old to enjoy here this weekend, with the fun fair doing a good trade in the spectator area. But right now, all eyes about to turn back to the track because the VW Racing Cup cars are about to head on to their green flag lap, the last chance to have a little look at the track conditions, and they may well have changed from yesterday. We've had a few races already today, all of which have been entertaining and all of which have seen cars in the gravel trap at some point. So with the subsequent recovery work that's gone on, some of that gravel may have been dragged onto the road, and that could potentially have an effect on grip levels. You can see there out over the curve there are some gravelly tyre marks from the latest cars that were hoiked out of that particular gravel bed. There's a grid then, Josh Coggan on pole position, Martin Depper lining up alongside him, then Rory Clark third with Owen Walton, the first of the Audi TTs, fourth position, championship leader. Then it's Rob Allen with Tony Prendergast. Rob Allen's actually fourth in the points as well. He's had a really consistent season so far. Russell Joyce and Mark Wakefield then. Mark Wakefield all the way down in 8th position, but he is the man that's second in the championship, only 12 points behind Owen Walton. Owen's father Simon lines up on the 5th row, 9th on the grid with Mark Steele alongside him. And then Jack Depper, the son of Martin Depper, is on the 6th row with Richard Gilbert in 12th position on the grid. Lewis Smith is next. He's been quick on occasion this year. Jeff Alden, former Renault Clio driver, is 14th on the grid. And then the back row of the grid for Jeff Clark and Michael Jones, who is a new name to me. Michael Jones from Norley up in Cheshire, running with the JW Bird Motorsport squad, who I don't think has raced with us so far this year. But Michael Jones, and he is one of several drivers actually eligible for the Red Hancock Award, which is for drivers who have never appeared on the podium before, and there are some 2, 4, 6, 8 drivers on the grid who are up for that award, and so they'll be looking for their first podium perhaps, and with it they'll get an extra award if they can do it. But it's such a competitive series this that most drivers get up there at some point onto the podium. cars, as long as you've got a car basically that comes from somewhere within the VAG brand, so it would be that a VW, Audi or a Seat, then you are able to come and race it in the championship. That's why we have things like the Audi TT out there, and the bulk of the field in VW Golf. As you can see, there are a number of Siroccos which have always been quick, and the highest placed of the Siroccos is Martin Depper from the outside of row number 1, but there is a balanced performance between all of the cars anyway, so there's no advantage to having any one particular make or model. There is also success ballast, so the drivers that do well in one race then get lumbered with quite a bit. It's like 60 kilos of success ballast for the next race, and that carries over from weekend to weekend as well. So the winners of race 2 at Brands Hatch a few weeks ago on the Indy circuit will be laden with ballast now, arriving here on the Grand Prix circuit, which is not the easiest of circuits to carry that ballast at, really. There's a lot of accelerating and decelerating on the Indy part of the track, but then out the back you've got to try and carry that momentum up and downhill, and carrying the ballast doesn't really assist you in that at all. So it doesn't really help you off the line either, so the start is going to be difficult maybe for some of those that are struggling with ballast. That's why Mark Wakefield's all the way down in 8th position, by the way. That car fairly heavy after a successful previous round on the Indy circuit here at Brands Hatch. It's been nearly a month as well since these drivers have last raced, so a few of them may be a little race rusty. Many of them, though, go and race in other championships. Mark Wakefield, for example, has had a turn in the TCR UK Championship this year, and several of the drivers keep themselves busy during the season in various other championships as well. Right now, though, the only championship that matters for these drivers is the VW Racing Cup, whose first race of the day here at Brands Hatch is about to get underway. The red lights go out very quickly, and who gets off the line best? It's not a brilliant start from Coggan, so Martin Depper will be alongside of Rob Allen's off into the barriers and on top of the barriers, coming off the start-finish line. How on earth he ended up there, I do not know, but Rob Allen is most definitely out of the race. Does everyone else get safely through Paddock Hill Bend? Yes, they do, but that was a dramatic start to the race. Coggan leads the way, Depper second, Clark third, so they're in grid order, but Owen Walton's gone. Yeah, there's Owen Walton. The 91 car is perhaps in trouble because he's dropped almost outside of the top 10 now. His dad's gone past him, Simon Walton, and so Owen Walton, who was leading the championship. Oh, Coggan's off now as well. Josh Coggan's lost it out of Graham Hill Bend, and he's in the barrier, the race leader off the road, and you couldn't script this, could you? Josh Coggan, I think that must have been on cold tyres coming out of Graham Hill, has lost control of the car, and in the ensuing tank slapper has connected with the Armco barrier. Now, I don't know how heavy that hit was and whether he'll be able to rejoin. He will need to try, though, because Coggan, also a championship contender, like Rob Allen is, like Owen Walton is, will really need to try and get the car going again to try and salvage some points. So already then you can essentially flip the grid on its head, because they're in nothing like grid order now. It was a fairly sensible start from the front couple of rows, but Rob Allen, who started 5th on the grid, so that's the inside of row number 3, ended up on top of the barriers. I can see out of my window, though, he's somehow driven the car across the track and into the pit lane entrance, so he's actually got that car out of the way, would you believe? And there he is, look, going down the access road to the paddock now, so Rob Allen's car's out of the way. Did Josh Coggan get going? I think he might have done, so we might actually get away without a safety car here. The leaders then come through clearways for the first time, and it will be Martin Depper that leads the way. So Depper across the start-finish line first. There's Jack Depper up the inside, fighting away with, I think that's Jeff Alden on the outside, the green Golf. And they will come across the start-finish line absolutely together. The Golf on the outside line, though, will surely not be able to go right around the outside into paddock, and indeed it can't. So Jack Depper is now able to take over the position. And that was for 10th place that Jack Depper's just taken. And then you've got the number 6 car behind as well. This all getting very congested again into Druids, because back on the inside goes Jeff Alden. And on the exit of the corner, he does draw level once more, but the next corner's a left-hander. And so Jack Depper sails into Graham Hill Bend, still in that 10th position. Josh Coggan, I can tell you, was in the pit lane, so he did rejoin and took the back entrance into the pits, so he'll have some explaining to do to his team, I think. But Martin Depper has taken the lead. Now let's see if we can see what happens to Rob Allen here. Oh, he's going to meet with, and that's what happened to Owen Walton. So it's Owen Walton, the championship leader, that he tangled with, and as Allen moved left, Walton was moving right, and they met in the middle of the road, and once they made contact, that was it then. Allen was on a one-way course to the barriers. But then what happened to Coggan? Was it cold tyres? I think it must have been. Here's another view of what happened to Allen. He got a good start. Look, tried to shoot the gap in between a slow starting Rory Clark and Owen Walton, and it hit the barrier and just sort of launched into the air, rode across the top of the barriers right in front of me and right in front of the hospitality units as well, who got a good view of that. And the marshals, I think, were all ready to get the car moved, and then he said, no, it's all right, I've got this, I can drive it out of the way. So Martin Depper then, 5th in the championship, 40 points off the championship lead, despite not having raced in every meeting this year, is leading the way now by 2.1 seconds at the end of lap number 2. It is Rory Clark second, Russell Joyce is third, and Mark Wakefield up into fourth, having started down in 8th, so this has all benefited him rather. Jeff Alden still scrapping away here with Jack Depper, and just in front of them is the 22 car of Mark Steele, so that's a three-way battle going on for 9th position, with Depper, as we saw a lap ago, having just moved into 10th spot, and now Jeff Alden's going to try and take it away from him again up the inside at Druids, but that tight line on the way in is really quite slow on the exit of the corner, and Jack Depper is able to use that wide line to carry the speed down the hill, then uses all of the curve on the way in and out of Graham Hill Bend. If that wasn't exceeding track limits, I don't know what was. He's not quite able to get up the inside of Mark Steele into Surtees. This is an interesting little three-way scrap between the trio. Downhill they go then, the Scirocco with its bonnet flapping slightly. I don't think anything to be too concerned about though. That's Josh Coggan in the pit lane, the DW Racing squad. Darrell Wilson's squad working hard on the front left corner, which was the first part of the car to hit the barrier, therefore the bit that got the most damage. Right, Mark Wakefield here then, he has got one of the Waltons behind him, that is Owen Walton, who's back into 5th place now somehow, so Owen Walton, about halfway through the first lap, was down in about 9th or 10th, but there, the number 91 car, the championship leader, is now behind the man that's 2nd place in the championship, so these are the top 2 in the championship, but in reverse order, essentially. And then just in front of them, Russell Joyce, who doesn't really have a championship battle to worry about, so he's just trying to get the best result that he can. Out of clearways then, towards paddock, and Walton just dropping back ever so slightly at the end of the lap, so he's not going to be able to challenge into Paddock Hill Bend. He's got his father acting as rear gunner behind, and Simon Walton, who's had a couple of incidents this year, so he's not really in contention for the championship anymore, so he can maybe play a supporting role here to his son, Owen Walton, both of them looking for their first championship victory this year. Here's what happened to Josh Coggan. We got out on the curb, and then really from then on he just couldn't get control of the car, and he hit the tyre wall fairly substantially. But yeah, just that was an odd one, wasn't it? Because he looked to have got it sorted, but that's the issue with front-wheel drive cars. You get sideways and you're taught to mash your foot down on the accelerator and steer into it, but then it grips and it goes back the other way, and then you get into a typical tank slapper, and that's exactly what happened to Coggan. And in the end, he overcorrected once too often and ended up in the tyre wall with damage that is still keeping that car in the pit lane, and he's now multiple laps down, so not much likelihood of him gaining any serious points. This, though, is a significant battle. Owen Walton needs to try and get past Mark Wakefield to protect his championship lead, but Mark Wakefield will be equally aware of the significance of keeping that Audi TT at bay. Because if one comes through, there's every chance the other one might follow it as well, so that could be 2 places lost for Wakefield, who until the Waltons arrived on his tail was actually pressuring Russell Joyce for 3rd, but has now had to start watching what's going on in his mirrors more than he's focusing on the windshield, and so he's having to defend more than attack. Out of clearways again, the Audi looks to have had a better exit this time, so can Owen Walton maybe attack into Paddock Hill Bend? The 2 cars very evenly matched in a straight line. Does he dive out to the inside? Thought about it, but not really close enough. Needed to be a car length or so closer to the rear bumper of the number 18 car in order to be able to make that move stick. So 13 minutes of this to go as well. It's been packed a lot of action into the first few laps, and now things starting to calm down a little more. Further back, by the way, Jeff Alden has got past Mark Steele, and so too Jack Depper, actually. So Jack Depper's into 9th now. Alden is 10th. Mark Steele down to 11th position, so that's all changed around somewhere whilst we've been focusing on our championship protagonists. Josh Coggan out of the race is not going to score any points, and that will, of course, affect his championship chances. And there, Jack Depper continues his charge up the order. That was for 8th place now. He's just gone up the inside of Richard Gilbert. Jack Depper started 1 position ahead of Richard. He was 11th and Richard was 12th on the grid. They're now, again, 1 position apart, this time with Jack Depper into 8th spot as they've benefited from the dramas of others around them. Gilbert thought about getting back up the inside there into Hawthorne, but that's not necessarily the most sensible of places to try and overtake. There, though, is your race leader, Martin Depper, under the bridge into clearways. Rory Clark was 3 seconds behind him at the start of the lap, and that's staying fairly static, I think, on this particular lap. But in fact, it's going up maybe by a tenth or so. This is the battle over third place. Russell Joyce has been caught again now by the slightly older generation Golf of Mark Wakefield. And so 2 Golfs and 2 Audi TTs set to debate the third step on the podium, which at the moment is going to Russell Joyce. But Mark Wakefield, despite the pressure he's feeling from the cars behind, has now actually been able to latch on to Joyce, and in doing so, enjoys a couple of car lengths cushion now over the Waltons behind. So Wakefield now can go on the attack fully, and he nearly drove straight into the back of Russell Joyce through Druids then, onto the brakes into Graham Hill Bend. Russell Joyce a bit sideways turning in, but you need a little bit of oversteer in a front-wheel drive car just to get the car rotated through that very tricky left hand. You're dropping very steeply downhill into it, so it's easy to outbrake yourself, and then the road really flattens out at the bottom, so there's no camber at all at Graham Hill Bend. That means the car does tend to understeer, sorry. Hence why they try and kick the tail out on the way in, sort of a nice four-wheel drift through the corner, which he did nicely there, did Russell Joyce. He's held onto the spot, and now Owen Walton's coming into the picture once again. And as soon as he forces Wakefield to defend, especially out here on the Grand Prix circuit, Wakefield loses so much momentum, and so Russell Joyce gets away from him once more. It's a fascinating to and fro battle, this, and the elasticated gaps between the cars keep on ebbing and flowing as one driver starts defending and another starts attacking, and it changes the whole dynamic of the scrap. But this is now playing back into the hands of Russell Joyce. It seems like through the Grand Prix loop, though, that's where Wakefield's quick. Look, he's really pulled away from the Audis and caught up to Russell Joyce. So it's through those high-speed corners out the back of the circuit that Mark Wakefield seems to have the edge, and that makes sense because that's where the success ballast will affect him less. It's the tight corners when you're accelerating from low speed and braking from high speed. That's where the success ballast really hampers you, and it might therefore hamper him in trying to make an overtake into Paddock Hill Bend. He is late on the brakes and tries to go right around the outside of Russell Joyce. This is a brave move for Mark Wakefield, but he knows that it's worth some valuable championship points. Can he complete the manoeuvre though? Around the outside at Druids, I don't think he'll be able to, and he'll have to think about closing the door here, otherwise Owen Walton will be there. They're still side by side, and Mark Wakefield might just do it. He goes around the outside at Druids, gets the inside into Graham Hill Bend, and that was a classy move and a really, really decisive one by Mark Wakefield, and it moves him into third position now, and he crucially has a car between himself and Owen Walton now, so he's taking a few more points out of the championship leader. And now he wants Russell Joyce to do a better job of defending fourth place than he did of defending third, because for Wakefield, he would love Joyce to stay in front of Owen Walton now, but Owen looks to have good speed at this stage of the race. It will concertina back together again down at the bottom of Pilgrim's Drop. Mark Wakefield then into third spot. That was a really good move. You can, as we just saw, you can do that. You can go around the outside at Druids to get the inside for Graham Hill Bend, but you're reliant on the driver you're overtaking not to push you out wide coming out of Druids. If they elbow you out onto the grass, then you could end up losing places. You could even end up in the barriers, and the driver on the inside is within their right to do that. As long as it's not malicious, you are allowed to run the other car out to the edge of the road. And Wakefield had a lot of faith there that Russell Joyce wasn't going to do that to him, and that faith has paid off because he's now into a podium place and starting to stretch away ever so slightly. Joyce then down to fourth. Owen Walton right with him though. Simon Walton still playing rear gunner. They're being caught now as well by Tony Prendergast. Tony Prendergast in the number 5 Scirocco there. The black car with the yellow highlights is starting to close in as well. So this could become an even bigger pack of cars scrapping, although Tony runs a bit wide at Paddock, won't have helped his chances. Front of the field, still 3.8 seconds separate Martin Depper and Rory Clark, and then they're 12 seconds ahead of this group of cars scrapping over third place. So I think our top two are set, most definitely. The question will be what happens from third on back, but Wakefield starting to get away from them now slightly. There goes Clark then, in second position. Then the fight for, well, really fourth place now comes through Surtees, because as you'll see on the next shot, I think, Mark Wakefield, yes, there, Wakefield pulling away now from Russell Joyce, who's starting to become more concerned with what Owen Walton's doing behind him than he is with sticking on the rear bumper of Mark Wakefield in front of him. Still got just over 7 minutes to go in this race as well, which got off to a very dramatic start. Josh Coggan, by the way, I can tell you, is back on track now. So Josh Coggan has just left the pit lane, and he is back in the race now. So Josh Coggan laps down, of course. He's about 6 or 7 laps down. Has at least been able to get the car back out there, more as a glorified test session now to make sure the car's okay for race 2, but he might be able to salvage some points. If he finishes the race, he'll score some points at least, and having come into this weekend 16 points behind the championship leader, he needs every point he can get, really. So under the bridge then, into clearways. There is a slow car, is there possibly? No, I think that's just Michael Jones, who's, as you can see from the... off has got Richard Gilbert. As I interrupt myself, he got off at Sterling's, pounces his way back on the road. Now, did he jump or was he pushed? That's the next question we need to try and answer. See if we can drag a replay out for you if we can. But, yeah, Michael Jones with the novice cross on the back of his car, so he's a racing rookie, a relative rookie anyway. Here's what happened to Richard Gilbert. Doesn't look like he was pushed, he just carried a bit too much speed into Sterling's. It's a banked corner, that, so you can carry more speed than you think you can, but not quite that much speed, as it turns out. And again, Gilbert, another driver with the yellow and black cross on the back of the car, telling us and the other drivers around him that he's relatively inexperienced, so just lets the more experienced drivers know that maybe they need to be a little bit more gentle with him, but that's not always the way it works. On that occasion, though, Gilbert threw away the places all by himself with that mistake at Sterling's corner. Didn't lose a huge amount of time, though, to the cars in front, so he'll be able to try and latch back onto the tail of Mark Steele, who he was scrapping with for 9th position, or who he just lost that position from, actually, just before that moment, earlier on the previous lap. So, just over 5 minutes to go then. Tony Prendergast has now caught the Joyce and Walton battle. But, Russell Joyce is now nearly a second and a half behind Mark Wakefield, so Wakefield looking ever more secure in 3rd position. There's Owen Walton, turns through Sterling's corner. Very satisfying corner to drive, that as well, because you can carry lots of speed into the turn, and then the banking just catches you. Cambered corner is a driver's best friend in many ways. It's the off-cambered corners that tend to catch them out a little bit more regularly. Prendergast had a good exit there from clearways. He's behind Simon Walton now. So Simon Walton, as rear gunner, has his first real work to do now to try and protect his son Owen in front. And Tony Prendergast applying the pressure, looks to the inside into Druids, but the Audi is later on the brakes. If you go in on the wider line, you can carry more speed into the corner, thus brake later. Prendergast not yet able to unlock the door then for this 6th position. There's Wakefield, not racing away all that rapidly. It's a second and a half the gap between Wakefield and Joyce, so it was at the start of the lap. The first sector time, Joyce is actually a 10th and a half quicker than him, but that again I think is down to that success ballast in the first sector. But of course, if Wakefield ends up on the podium, he's going to be carrying success ballast again now for race number 2 later on this afternoon. So yes, he wanted the points for a podium result, but thinking long term, that's not necessarily going to benefit him in the second race later on today. Owen Walton's chances of improving on 5th, though, are looking less and less likely now. He's actually starting to hold up Simon Walton ever so slightly. Simon's had a good race, though, started down in 9th position for this one, and he's up into 6th, but of course did run a bit higher than that earlier on. Now, as the race has settled down into a bit more of a rhythm, he's sort of settled into that 6th position now, but he's got some real defensive work to do as they head back out of the final turn. And Owen Walton not particularly quick off clearways, and now Simon Walton is faced with a dilemma. Does he race his son and try and take the position and therefore the championship points away from him, or does he settle for 6th place? Well, he looked from the body language of the car like he was attacking then into paddock. Simon has to look out for himself, I suppose, at the end of the day, but he's now defending again up the hill. Walton clearly struggling for some sort of pace now in the latter part of the race. Maybe he's burnt out those front tyres a little. This place will wear out the front left tyre on a front-wheel drive car fairly quickly because of those long, high-speed right-handers out the back. It's the front left tyre that takes the punishment. We've seen in the past that these Audis maybe are a little harder on their tyres than the VWs, so that may be what's happening here. Russell Joyce now over a second clear of them, and actually was a 10th quicker than Mark Wakefield on the previous lap, so Mark Wakefield's 3rd place, whilst it's relatively secure, is certainly not in the bag just yet. Prendergast keeping keeping watching brief in this little scrap. A pair of Waltons now starting to trip over each other just a little bit. Out of Sheen, through Dingle Dell, the dip, up into Sheen Curve. Westfield, sorry, was the one before. This is Sheen Curve. Across the start-finish line comes Martin Depper. The car immediately behind him is a lapped car. That is the Michael Jones machine, I think, that's just gone one lap down. It is that car that just appeared into shot. Rory Clark, 3.3 seconds behind him. That is in second place. So Sirocco 1-2 at the moment, with a pair of Golfs, third and fourth, and then a pair of Audis, fifth and sixth. So some good variety as ever in the VW Racing Cup. There's Rory Clark, the Scottish driver, who's raced a bit of everything, really, it seems, despite having not necessarily been on the motor racing scene all that long. Started in BMW Compact Cup racing with Rory Clark. Back to the Walton family affair, and Tony Prendergast still trying to inject himself into that battle, but he's not really. He keeps showing his nose to Simon Walton, but just hasn't been able to really force the issue. He's had a good exit from Graham Hill Bend there, though. So he might be in position to have a dive into Surtees. He did have a look, but you have to be committed there. And again, it's an uphill left-hander that's quite a long corner. It tightens towards the end, so you can again carry quite good speed up the hill there, which means you're not doing a huge amount of braking. Off the corner, though, Prendergast is definitely quicker. Gets back alongside here as they go down Pilgrim's Drop into Hawthorne. This, I think, is going to be the final lap of the race as well, with only 20 seconds left on the clock. So Owen Walton, Simon Walton and Tony Prendergast have to sort this one out fairly shortly. Here comes the leader. Are we going to squeeze another lap in? We might just do. 10 seconds left, 9, 8, 7. The checkered flag's being prepared, but is it going to be waved this time? 4, 3, 2, 1. It is. The checkered flag's being waved. That is it. Look at that. Exactly 20 minutes of racing then, and it's Martin Depper that takes the race victory. Rory Clark comes home in second, 4.2 seconds back. Third will be Wakefield, fourth will be Joyce. The question is who will be fifth and sixth and seventh, and here they could, but I think they're probably going to stay in the same order. It's certainly going to be Owen Walton in fifth position. Can Tony Prendergast beat Simon Walton to the line? He's closing, and he will pull out of the slipstream, which will be side by side across the start-finish line, but the Audi will just about hang on to it by, in the end, just over a tenth of a second. So it's Martin Depper the winner, Clark second, Wakefield third, and that's some good points there. So of the points contenders, he scored better than anyone else. Russell Joyce is fourth, Owen Walton fifth, Simon Walton sixth, then Prendergast, Jeff Alden, Mark Steele, sorry, and Richard Gilbert will round out the top 10 finishers. Martin Depper, though, takes another race victory, not his first of the year, but as I say, he's not been entered into every round, so arrived here 40 points off. He could still get himself into contention, but running out of races now, really. 2 here this weekend and another 2 at Donington Park at the end of in the middle of September. And so Depper will need to keep winning races, and that becomes harder now that he'll have to carry some success ballast. He was ballast free in that race, so that obviously is what has allowed him to run away with it rather. I just noticed that Jack Depper, his son, was in the pit lane, so Jack Depper unfortunately has had to retire the car there in the latter stages. Jack Depper out of the race then, but Martin Depper, his father, takes the win, so Jack, I'm sure, will go and join in the family celebrations. Russell Joyce, by the way, was the leading Hancock Award driver in 4th position, so he just missed out on his debut podium in the end. And here is confirmation of the result. Martin Depper with the victory by 4.2 seconds. Rory Clark was second, Mark Wakefield was third, Russell Joyce fourth, and Owen Walton in fifth. Simon Walton played his rear gunner right the way through the race, really, ended up in 6th place, fended off Tony Prendergast to the flag just about. Jeff Alden, having run higher than that, initially finished in 8th position. 9th was Mark Steele, and 10th for Richard Gilbert. Well, it was a dramatic start to the race as championship leader Owen Walton tangled with Rob Allam at the start, and Rob ended up riding on top of the barriers and nearly going over. Miraculously, he was able to recover the car and get it out of harm's way. It was a good start that Allam had made. He tried to find a gap up the middle. There was just the slightest bit of contact, no malice at all there, but it was a disastrous end to what had been a promising race for Allam, who came into the weekend 4th place in the championship. Josh Coggan was 3rd in the championship and was leading the race, but after 3 corners he had a moment on cold tyres and ended up off the road, handing Martin Depper the race lead. I bet Martin couldn't believe his eyes when he saw that unfolding in front of him. It was already a comfortable margin, and he made it ever more comfortable as the race went on. The main battle throughout the second half of the race was the one for third position. Mark Wakefield was in fourth early on, defending from his big title rival Owen Walton, and then made a brilliant move around the outside of Russell Joyce through both Paddock Hill Bend and Druid, finally getting the inside at Graham Hill and going into third position. He would hold that podium spot to the flag. Martin Depper, though, was the race winner. Rory Clark came home second, Mark Wakefield third. Will those three be back on the podium in race 2? Find out this afternoon.